Hello and welcome back to Bookish, and welcome to my Saturday Hodgpodge for this Saturday. I think it's July the 25th. Actually, I'm almost positive. It's July the 25th. I have a lot of things I want to talk about today, none of them in any too great of depth. Some having to do with reading, some having to do with YouTube, some having to do with projects coming up next month and other people's channels and things like that. So I'm just going to kind of jump in and we're just going to touch on a few things really quickly. So I do want to talk about what I read, and the book I read at the beginning of this week was White Rage by Carol Anderson. This is essentially her book in which she attempts to find historical proof for the problems we still face in race relations in the United States of America today. And in it she suggests that anytime African Americans make a significant improvement to their lives, have achievements, get close to equality, that there is a reaction among the white population to reestablish control of the white population and to, limit, deprive, take away rights from African Americans. If you've been watching my series, or if you watch any of the videos probably, in my series on institutionalized racism in the United States, you know that that's a position that I pretty much agree with. And I've talked about how there have been these three phases in the history of race relations in the United States, beginning with slavery, then Jim Crow, and then with its reaction to the civil rights movement and its successes, which began with Nixon in the 60s and 70s and Reagan in the 80s and continue on till today. Just to give you some idea of how I think ridiculous this white rage thing is and how true it is, just look at the United States Congress just this week, just in the last 2 days. We have Senator Tom Cotton from Arkansas proposing to cut funding for any school which uses the 1619 curriculum, as though the 1619 curriculum is in some way anti-American, when in reality what it is, it's an attempt to get the United States to accurately confront and think about the history of slavery in the United States. We saw Congressman Louis Gohmert from my own state here of Texas propose a resolution to ban any party with historic ties to racism or racists, and among those would be the Democratic Party. And what is Louis Gohmert angry about? He's angry about the removal of Confederate statues from the Capitol. He's angry about the effort to rename U.S. military bases that were named after Confederate generals. And what can we call this ridiculous behavior other than white rage? So, if you weren't convinced white rage exists and you haven't read this book, then those events should convince you that it's real, that these men are angry, these white men are angry about, history being corrected, about us looking at our history in a more honest and direct way, and somehow they feel threatened about that. Now, what I want to talk about with white rage is something I think is important. As a historian, as a historical, reader, white rage is not a work of history. It's really a work of sociology. I believe that's what Dr. Anderson's degree is in. And so it's using history to prove a sociological or a political point. And you always have to be careful with books like that in terms of reading and what use they're making of history. And this is where, I think it's really important to check things like, the endnotes and to see what the sources are and to acknowledge that there is a bias on the part of the author. All political books are written with a bias, whether they use history or not, and this is definitely one. Now, I read the book. I read it in about a day and a half, which, if you know anything about me, is incredibly fast for me in terms of reading a book. And I agreed with it, but that's because, Carol Anderson and I share kind of probably a viewpoint on race relations. But I did check a lot of the notes, and a lot of the endnotes that are in there, and the book is incredibly well documented. But in checking the notes, I noticed several things that I think are oftentimes true in a political work or sociological work which is basing itself or finding evidence in history. So just a couple of things I wanted to point out. A historian, I think, would have made sure they used almost exclusively primary sources where possible. They would not have cited the work of other historians. They wouldn't have cited the works of certain kinds of popular magazines. They would have gone back to the original sources. Now, Dr. Anderson does cite, the original Supreme Court cases and a lot of original laws and direct quotes, but occasionally she doesn't. And that's one of those things which I think her critics might say would weaken her argument. I looked at those sources. I understood they're about. I could think I could think of sources that would back that up, and so I don't think that weakened her argument or her claims at all. And there were some places in which I felt like she made a really big point. Like she makes a really definitive statement that this is the way this is, and then when you look up the end note, she really has one source for that. This again, I think if she were a historian and writing a work of history and not a work of political science or sociology, that she would have tried to have more sources to back up those big points. Again, I think the sources she has are fine. I think they back up the point, but it has to do more with a matter of thoroughness. But again, it's important to remember that she's not writing a book of history. She's writing a book of political science or sociology, and therefore she's making an argument, and she's using history to support her argument. Again, I agree with it. I thought this book was great. I think it's a book that should be read widely. But that doesn't mean there aren't those flaws and problems with it as a work of history. Okay, so that was the first thing I want to talk about. Second, I have been continuing my listening to Sense and Sensibility. That was my Jane Austen July book. I've been listening to that on audiobook. I didn't get very far this week, so I'm still only about halfway through the book. And then I'm also just about to finish my BookTube prize reading. I am almost, I think, about 60 pages away from finishing Say Nothing, the work of history about the Troubles in Northern Ireland, which I've been reading, and obviously I can't say anything about that. Other Jane Austen July news, I started watching the BBC adaptation of Pride and Prejudice, the one with Colin Firth as Mr. Darcy, and I have to say, even though I haven't finished it, I'm somewhat disappointed. I've been led to believe that, this was the superior version, and I will grant you, obviously, since it's a series, it can take more time to develop the story in more depth, and you lose less of the actual Jane Austen story in it, but I just find the acting to be pretty not good, I would say, and I'm not sure I think Colin Firth is a better Mr. Darcy than, what's his name, McFadden, who is the Mr. Darcy in the Keira Knightley version of Pride and Prejudice, which I actually like better, so I've been watching that. I'm also planning on getting to the BBC version of Persuasion this month. I did finish the BBC version of Sense and Sensibility. I liked it very much. I like the story, and so I have a feeling I'm going to come out of having done the audiobook of Sense and Sensibility liking it very much too. So that's kind of where I'm at. August or this month also, I'm continuing my short story project, and my short story for this month is A Worn Path by Eudora Welty. Today is the day I should have released that video, but since I'm challenged when it comes to reading calendars, I didn't realize that I scheduled that video for Saturday when I normally do my Hodgpodge video, so that video about Eudora Welty's A Worn Path will be out tomorrow. I will post that, and I will probably post a link to a way to access that story for free in the show notes down below if you want to see that. And then next month is Faulkner in August. This is going to be an annual kind of BookTube tradition with myself and Alan from Big Hard Books and Classics. Last year we read Light in August as a read-along, and he and I both want to invite you to join in, and this year's Faulkner title is The Sound and the Fury. I'll post a full schedule, but essentially the original novel contains 4 sections, and so we're going to read one section a week, and I will post a video about that section probably on the Sunday at the end of the week, so I think that's something like the 9th, the 16th, the 23rd and the 30th will probably when my videos go up. There is, and Faulkner did write and have included with many later versions of The Sound of the Fury a 5th section, which he intended to be an appendix to let you know what happened to the characters. I'm not going to be covering that. I don't know if Alan is or not. And also this year we're going to be joined, and we're really happy to be joined by the guys over from Codex Cantina. Crypto and Una are going to read The Sound of the Fury also. We're all going to have our own video making schedule, but I just wanted to let you know that's what's taking place. And if you get access to a copy of The Sound of the Fury, we'd love to have you join along in reading along. Like I said, probably sometime this week I'll have a new video out just kind of posting the dates and the sections as an announcement video more formally. By the way, there'll probably be a lot more videos from me this week unless I run out of steam, then there normally are then. And then, so that was Faulkner in August. I want to make sure I mention that. Just some BookTube stuff. You know, I had a good week in watching BookTube. I didn't watch as many BookTube videos as I normally did, and I commented less. I'm still having a little bit of trouble with my eyes and some kind of minor health issues, which are making it difficult for me to spend a lot of time looking at a computer screen. But I did find 4 things I wanted to draw your attention to. 2 of them are videos. And the reason why I want to draw your attention to the first 2 things is they're videos which give you a whole list of other channels that you can check out and follow. This is one of those things that I love about BookTube, and that is making people aware of other channels. And so when 2 of the people I follow essentially did videos very, very much along those lines, I wanted to make sure that you're aware of those videos. Now, if you follow me, you probably follow these people, but you know, just in case, maybe you don't. Jason from Byways in Bookland did a video called Encaro Imporo BookTube Education, in which he listed a lot of booktubers who he appreciates because of the educational material they provide. And of course, I'm plugging that video because he mentions me. But there are a whole, I'm just kidding, well, anyway, but there are a whole lot of great BookTube channels that he lists and talks about, and that video, you need to listen to Jason talk about books and BookTube, which is always entertaining, but he has a great list then of channels for you to check out. Kazin from Always Doing also put up a similar video this week called Reading My Friend's Recommendations, A Pile of Possibilities, and I think she lists 20 BookTube channels where she's gotten book recommendations from, and I know some of those channels. I found some new channels by looking at her video that I subscribe to, so you know, go check those videos out. If you're looking for new channels, if you're looking for a specific kind of content, please go check those videos out. Also, there are 2 history read-alongs going on that I wanted to draw your attention to. The first is being hosted, that I want to mention, is being hosted by Karen Evans. It's called These Truths Read-Along, American History, and she's taken the history book by Jill Lepore called These Truths, and she's taking a section of that and she's picking out other books that go along with that section, and she's kind of hosting a read-along of that. I'll leave a link to her video down below in the show notes as well. And then Justin, AKA Ghostreader, is one of the hosts of a history challenge which is taking place, I believe, in the middle of August, where it's a challenge to read works of history. And so I want to draw your attention to that. I'll leave a link to his announcement video in the show notes down below, and from there you can find links to the other channels and the other hosts. Anyway, there you go. That's my Saturday hodgepodge for today. Look forward to your comments in the comment section below, and as always, thank you for watching.